Oh, thank you, Santa.
Oh, shit!
What? Thank you, Santa.
Shut the hell up.
Oh! Thank you, Santa.
So this video is going to be about Eric Whiteley, the big boss of Blindwave and Disney Shill. Gonna expose myself as a fan of reaction channels here, but I've been watching Blindwave for almost 10 years, ever since I think season 1 of The Flash, so I think I was in high school at the time. I uploaded a video from EFAP where they were going over some stuff Eric was saying about Star Wars and the fandom, and I'm going to read through some comments that I thought were interesting and give my own opinion on Eric and his views of Star Wars and the fandom and how he acts about it. So the first comment here says, Blindwave are very obviously compromised when it comes to Star Wars. I remember Eric voicing displeasure over Ragnar's drug addiction in Vikings, which in my experience is rare for any of them to do, yet he eats up all of the Disney slop, including the egregious character assassinations of Luke and Obi-Wan. They are a good reaction channel though. I will agree that they do have some good reactions. Obviously I am kind of a fan. I am a big fan of One Piece, and their reactions to the live action series were a lot of fun in my opinion. And here is also the comment that says, characters not talking to each other for the sake of the plot is an ick for him, yet the Acolyte has that same issue and he doesn't bring it up at all. And that's a good example of Eric not holding Disney Star Wars to the same standard that he does other shows and movies. And the second comment here says, I used to watch Blindwave all the time, but it became clear that as long as it was officially Star Wars because of the license holder making it, that they will praise it eternally. Eric saying he preferred the Last Jedi Luke because it was the real Luke, that was the last straw for me. Honestly, thinking Jake Skywalker is the real Luke or a believable progression of that character is just crazy to me. And peak Shill mindset from Eric here. I find it especially weird that he would think that when Mark Hamill completely disagrees with the characterization of Luke in the sequel trilogy.
I said to Ryan, I said, Jedis don't give up. I mean, even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try and regroup. But if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong. So right there, we had a fundamental difference. But it's not my story anymore. It's somebody else's story. And Ryan needed me to be a certain way to make the ending effective. That's the crux of my problem. Luke would never say that. I'm sorry. Well, in this version, see, I'm talking about the George Lucas Star Wars. This is the next generation of Star Wars. So I almost had to think of Luke as another character. Maybe he's Jake Skywalker. He's not my Luke Skywalker, but I had to do what Ryan wanted me to do because it serves the story well. But listen, I still haven't accepted it completely, but it's only a movie. I hope people like it. I hope they don't get upset. And I came to really believe that Ryan was the exact man that they needed for this job.
Not that Mark Hamill is someone we should be listening to half the time because he's kind of a Biden nut. But when it comes to Luke's character, I feel like he has some authority over how he should be portrayed. This next comment is a little harsh, but it goes, these guys have always sucked. They shill for everything. They are unironically the nerd crew from RLM, Soyface Reactions and all. Blindwave, love 'em or hate 'em, is the quintessential positive-only reaction channel. It doesn't matter what is happening on screen, if the brand is large enough, they must respond in a positive manner. They only respond in a critical manner to smaller run shows or singular series. Disney Star Wars, Disney Marvel, HBO, WB's DC line, and others like these are brands that Blindwave cannot speak against. Personally, I think they're bought. When it comes to the DC stuff, they are absolutely putting on a performance because they were directly involved in one of the TV shows. They were featured in an episode because of their reactions.
Since they defeated a demon with the help of a dragon on national TV, they've become a worldwide obsession.
Oh, so quick!
It was so fast. I didn't get to see us very much. I'm gonna go back and look.
We're gonna go back and look. Oh my gosh, we've been keeping that secret for a while.
And if they were way more critical of the show like the majority of people watching it, they definitely would not be included in that episode. It's the exact same thing you see with all these Disney shills who give positive reviews no matter what in hopes of getting special treatment and gifts and access from Lucasfilm. There's a problem with reaction channels. The performative side to appease the audience can't appease everyone, but if you're always positive, you get flack. There is a rare occasion where the show is so good, like Arcane, that the audience and the reactors are on the same page. Then it's enjoyable to relive the show through their eyes. I agree with that. That's how I see their One Piece reactions, because I loved that show so much. It was a lot of fun watching them react to it as well. But when it's monotone, boring slop like Ahsoka, you see past the fake performance, and then it's just over. Now we're just looking at Boogie 2988, who's just sociopathically leeching off of the parasocial attention.
Yes, my mother twitted my fucking temples! Yes, my mother twitted my fucking temples!
Yes, my mother twitted my fucking temples!
Or worse, if they don't actually have the capacity to see Ahsoka for what it is, then it's just sad, because you realize the reactor has no standards and will clap for everything, and now the reaction is worth nothing. And now we're gonna get to what really motivated me to make this video, in the words of Anakin.
This is where the fun begins.
Worst thing Eric ever said was those who dislike the sequels just don't understand Disney's vision. They had no vision, though Eric would know that if he bothered to look beyond just consuming product. Though he won't. Fan projects and production specials make him angry for some reason, like his immersion is in danger. I agree 100%. People need to watch Eric's old reactions to Theory's fan film, and then to something like The Acolyte or The Last Jedi to see the difference in his attitude. He is super nitpicky towards low-budget fan projects, which is completely fine, but then when it's Disney Star Wars media, all of a sudden there's all this leeway. Same thing happened with the fan animation of Anakin vs. Obi-Wan, as the creator spent 3 years making it to look as close as possible to the Clone Wars episode as can be, and Eric was annoyed about the similarities to the movie and it not being a high budget as official episodes. Bruh, when The Bad Batch returned, he was suddenly smug about it looking better than something else. Now, I did watch through their reaction to the Clone Wars animated fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and I'll link that actual fan film in the description for you guys if you want to check it out. It's pretty decent, and I will say he was extremely nitpicky and critical of it to a crazy degree when compared to when he watches Ahsoka or anything else made by Disney that is just complete slop. He clearly holds himself to a high regard, and his opinions on how fight scenes should be made or how they should be choreographed or how characters should move, and he is clearly a big fan of lightsaber action, which most Star Wars fans are, but I have a feeling that that's what he cares about the most when it comes to portraying Jedi and Sith. Or at least that's the vibe he gives off when he talks about it. I get the feeling he thinks he's a huge expert on these things, and it's just a little cringe. Something that he says in that reaction video to the fan film is that the Clone Wars Anakin didn't move like Hayden, but the Anakin in the fan film moves way too much like Hayden, so it's jarring and it feels weird to him. And I pulled this clip from that video because I thought it was kind of funny to compare it to something from his Kenobi reaction. Just take a look at this.
When Hayden Christensen comes back to play Anakin Skywalker and you see him fight and you're like, oh my God, he looks so good. He like, I can feel Anakin. That's Anakin there, you know? And if you brought another actor to do the exact same choreography, it wouldn't feel the same.
Sure.
It just wouldn't.
So strong. I can see Hayden in there. I can see his posture.
What?
It's no surprise to anyone that Hayden wasn't really in the suit for the majority of Vader's fight scenes, but for some reason Eric just thought it was Hayden based on how he was moving, despite saying, well, you could tell if it wasn't Hayden. Here's some more comments referring to Theory's Vader fan film and their reaction to it, and I'll leave a link to his fan film in the description as well if you want to check that out. I remember Blindwave shitting all over Star Wars Theory's Vader fan film and didn't even make any good criticisms, just insults and saying they could do better for 10K. They have some superiority complexes. These guys decided to take a dump on Star Wars Theory's fan film for literally no reason. Showed how mature they really are. And I saw some of their fans defending the criticism, saying stuff like, well, they're just holding the fan films to the same standard as the movies and shows. but that just clearly isn't the case. They do not hold the shows and movies to a high standard, obviously, and that's why people were so upset by how critical they were being of fan projects. And this superiority complex they have might have something to do with the fact that they have their own fan film that, of course, as Disney Shills, is a sequel fan film about Kylo Ren that they are probably very proud of, considering that they have a whole playlist featuring everyone's reactions to that fan film. And I feel like they just can't handle the idea that other people might be making fan films that are just as good, if not better, than theirs. Obviously, I don't know exactly what they're thinking, but Eric himself comes off as extremely smug about his Star Wars takes and his opinions on how fights should be done. And the amount of times I've heard him say like, oh, a good choreographer knows how to choreograph the camera as well. Like, shut up, dude. What are you talking about? I understand being a fan of good fight scenes, but when you're watching Disney Star Wars, you don't seem to really give a shit. You just praise it because it's Star Wars and you love Star Wars and you just want to be positive. At least that's what you say. Like, Rosario Dawson was clearly not physically capable of putting in great performances with sabers, but I don't see this guy talking about that at all. He's just praising it because it's Ahsoka and it's Anakin and oh my god, Hayden Christensen is back. Yeah, thank you, Dave Filoni. Thank you, Dave Filoni. And I feel like for Eric, it's all about the rule of cool. If something looks cool, then it doesn't matter to him if it makes sense or not. He won't even think about it. You just look at episode 5 of The Acolyte, Jackie versus Camille. Great fight, but she's a Padawan and he destroyed a bunch of Jedi Masters, so it just makes them all look like shit compared to her. And of course, she looks amazing compared to all of those fucking idiots who got demolished. And speaking of The Acolyte, it kind of highlights another problem with Eric, that he is so dedicated to Disney Star Wars and supporting Disney Star Wars that he definitely doesn't give a shit about the EU, which is, in my opinion, the real canon of Star Wars. You know, these idiots, not just Eric, but all of these people praising the fact that Plagueis was in The Acolyte, despite it basically ruining the Plagueis novel, which completely eclipses The Acolyte in every aspect. I would highly recommend that novel to anyone who hasn't read it, and if you're interested in an actual story about the Sith, which The Acolyte was marketed as, the Plagueis novel is where it's at. I've been listening to the audiobook, highly recommend it, it's pretty awesome. Check it out. But back to Eric, he has talked about how, oh, Disney retconned the EU and now I have to get used to this new canon, and he acts like it was a big deal to him, but I don't get the feeling that he really cared that much at all. He loves the Clone Wars, he loves Rebels, he loves everything Disney Star Wars is, and I just can't imagine him ever caring about the expanded universe. Just like Filoni never cared about it, he loves everything that people hate about the sequels. He is a big Rey fanboy and he loves plagiarizing the EU. And Filoni cockjockeys like Eric are all for him doing that because they think he's the fucking Star Wars messiah. The problem with Eric is that he's so much of a Disney shill that you can't even really argue with him or have a real conversation with him. He just does not recognize the obvious flaws in Disney, or he just doesn't want to. Whereas someone like Star Wars Theory, he understands that since Filoni was in charge of a lot of the stuff going on while The Acolyte was being made, Filoni is partially responsible for that show being as bad as it is, and he is sort of disillusioned with Filoni at this point. And Star Wars Theory, unlike Eric, is able to be critical of Star Wars and understand when it is not up to our standards as Star Wars fans, real fans. Unlike a lot of these Disney shills who are sort of the new age Star Wars fans who didn't grow up watching Star Wars, didn't grow up reading these books, didn't grow up playing these games, they watched The Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy was their introduction to this franchise, and that's why you get the sense that they don't really care about Star Wars on the same level that the real fans do. They don't have a lot of love or respect for characters like Luke or Han or Leia or even Anakin. They want Ahsoka. They want her to be the main character. And Filoni wants that too, and these Filoni cockjockeys are all for it. They don't see a problem with Ahsoka or even Rey being given Luke's storylines. Heir to the Empire, the new Jedi Order, that's all being taken away from Luke and given to these new characters that don't matter. And that's another problem with Eric. Like, he's been a fan of Star Wars for so long, but for some reason doesn't see a problem with the treatment of Luke's character. He doesn't see a problem with Luke's stories being taken and stolen and adapted to Ahsoka's storyline and Rey's storyline. It's just like, what a fake fucking fan. Alright, that's enough yapping for one video. I'm gonna link to a channel called Manda-LORE. He covers the EU timeline really well, and if you're into that, definitely check it out. It's really good. But yeah, I don't exactly hate Eric or anything, but when it comes to Star Wars, he has a lot of similarities to these Disney shills that I genuinely have hatred for. And to me, that's one of the reasons why watching his Star Wars content really isn't worth it. It's not very interesting. It's not very good. It seems very fake, or at least he doesn't seem to give a shit about the quality. And how he reacts to fan-made content, because it's not made by Disney, I get the sense that he probably feels the same way about the expanded universe since it's not considered Disney canon. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, or whatever. I don't really mind. Do whatever you want. See you later.
Is that a Purgle?
It's a Purgle!
That's so cool!
Whales! Whoa, crap, man! You're on Waste Garage and you know, we're nerds, that this is, oh my gosh.
Oh, there's a whole herd.
It's a pod, Aaron. They're called pods.
Setting up Ezra stuff, you know.
They do travel in herds, they do.